There are 2 information sessions coming up this week for people who may be at risk for a condition called hemochromatosis. And if you're not sure exactly what the heck that is, well, you're not the only one, and that's the reason the Canadian Hemochromatosis Society is coming to Cape Breton to spread the word. They're holding 2 information sessions this week. There's one session tomorrow in Sydney, one the next night in Sydney Mines. And in town from Vancouver to host the sessions is Bob Rogers. He's Executive Director of the Canadian Hemochromatosis Society. Also joining us in studio is a familiar voice, Ivan Doncaster, who's the Municipal Councillor for East Bay, Gabaroos, Howie Centre, and all points in between. Good morning to you both.
Morning,
Good morning,
Steve.
Welcome back, Ivan.
Thank you.
And welcome to Cape Breton, Bob.
Thank you very much, Steve.
So what is it?
Hemochromatosis is a genetic disorder that causes the body to overload in iron, and that iron gets into the vital organs of the body, and then they begin to dysfunction. Disease of those organs begins, and people suffer and die of those conditions.
What does it do?
Well, if it gets into the liver, it can, even if you're a teetotaler, it can cause cirrhosis, and then that cirrhosis can lead to cancer that can metastasize through the entire body. If it gets into the pancreas, it can cause type 2 diabetes. In the heart, it can cause a irregular beating of the heart, an arrhythmia, or a sluggish heart muscle that can lead to heart failure.
So who does this affect?
It affects all Celts and Europeans, and this is really the fault of the Vikings, who were very warlike and lost a lot of blood about 1,000 years ago. And because they did that, their bodies adapted to make red blood cells very quickly. Well, when they went out to conquer other populations, such as Scotland, Ireland, Wales, into Northern Europe, France, Germany, and so on, they politely dropped their genes in the population, and that caused the genetic condition to spread. And now all those people are throughout the world, here in North America, but particularly in Atlantic Canada, where we have a very high Celtic, French, European ethnicity.
Yeah, we have a few Celts in Cape Breton Day, Ivan.
That's true.
So when did you know something was off?
I think sometime in the late 90s and early 2000s, I was having problems doing my regular tasks. I was getting tired. I was taking rest quite frequently. And sometimes when I ate any products with red meat in it, that I'd have problems with my bowel. So I don't know if the iron was building up in the bowel. But and then we had a job at the house and doing some work, building a shed, and a couple of my neighbors came up, and some of them complained to Viola, saying, "Listen, something wrong with Ivan. He can't do this. His colors doesn't look good." So I had previously had some tests done. Nothing showed up, so I went back and seen my doctor around, this is November or October 2005, and for some reason he ran me some blood work, and by accident he checked the ferritin level, and that's where the hemochromatosis showed up.
Yeah. What did he find?
He
Elevated levels of iron?
Yes, yeah, and he found I had the gene C282Y.
So what was that doing to you?
The liver. Well, normally people secrete their iron to bowel movement, etc. Mine was building up inside of me, causing damage to my liver.
So what did that mean? I mean, why did that make you lethargic, for instance?
Well, I think just because of the liver situation, it looks after a lot of your body functions, the liver itself, and the iron was building up and it was doing damage that could be eventually life-threatening.
So how does it manifest itself in people, Bob?
Well, a lot of people have the first symptoms of chronic fatigue in the beginning, just like Ivan does or did, and but then it can have loss of hair, loss of libido. Yeah, that's not too good. It causes.
I think Ivan was just referring to his hair, right?
It causes a lot of marital strife and depression and mood swings and all kinds of arthritic pain, and so these are the milder symptoms. And when people go to their physician, they say, "Hey, this is going on," and unless the physician is suspicious about hemochromatosis in the population, then they'll treat the primary disorder, but not the underlying condition. And that's what we're trying to get family practice physicians to do: is to become a little bit more suspicious about this diagnosis and put the public aware of it, so that the two can come together and maybe we can make a proper diagnosis.
So did your doc know about it, Ivan?
Not at the time. Once he found it out, he started doing some research. Then maybe in the next year or so, there's one or two other patients came with symptoms, and he was able to pinpoint what the problem was.
Mm-hmm. And what's involved with the treatment?
There's a level you want to keep under. The ferritin level I need is under 50, and I think Bob said that's pretty well standard. So when my level goes, like today, I might go up to the hospital, get blood tested, and if it shows maybe 55, I'll go in maybe 2 days' time, they draw out 8 ounces of blood from me.
Oh, really?
So that happens every maybe 6 to 3 months.
The treatment is giving blood, and the reason why that works is that you take the red blood cells out of the body through that way, then the body has to find stored iron in the body to make new red blood cells. So during the initial phase of de-ironing, it's quite frequent that these blood donations need to be given, sometimes 1 to 2 times a week for up to a year or more. But then, once a person gets to the proper level, which is what Ivan was just mentioning, then that blood, drawn approximately every 3 to 4 months when it's needed, can go to the Canadian Blood Services and go on to save 3 more lives.
So you can actually donate the blood that gets drawn.
You can.
So how do you feel, Ivan?
Right now, fairly well, yes. And Bob just alluded to, I have a little problem from my youth. I had yellow jaundice, and I can't donate blood to the...
Oh, I see,
because it's a liver issue. But I feel right now, yes.
Yeah. And was there any permanent damage from those years that you had it that you didn't know?
Well, I just had a liver biopsy maybe 2 weeks ago. My doctor came back and told me, he said, there's scar tissue. That's all that's there. My liver's great. He said, I got another 25 years of living, he says. But the main point is, for a lot of people that have it, you can't have a drop of alcohol. Is that correct, Bob?
If their liver's compromised, they shouldn't be taking alcohol, because then they're getting a double whammy of iron and alcohol to their liver that can cause the cirrhosis. But if their liver is not compromised by virtue of hemochromatosis, then they can have a moderate amount, but moderation is the key.
So how many people have it? Like, do you have stats on...
Well, the prevalence, according to the research in 2003 in the AIR study, is that in the general population of Canada, all comers now, all ethnicities, 1 in 300. But you take the risk population, those who I mentioned in the beginning of Celts and Europeans, it's 1 in 150 or 1 in 175. So that would be the prevalence down here, for sure. And carriers, that's people who only have one gene, would be about 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 here. So if you get 2 of those people having children who are both carriers, then their children are at risk for the condition.
Now, some of the things that Ivan mentioned are actually, they could be associated with a whole range of different conditions. So what's your advice of what to look for?
So if there's a symptom list on our website and if you have 2 or 3 of those otherwise unexplained, then a physician should do a serum ferritin test and a transferrin saturation test. These are not tests that are normally done, but a doctor can order them and they're covered under the medical system. And they would indicate, if elevated, that a person may have hemochromatosis, and then a genetic test for the human iron gene would confirm the diagnosis.
So what are some examples of the most common symptoms that you see?
Well, the ones that I mentioned to you, the fatigue, the loss of hair, the loss of libido, premature menopause in women, all of those are some of the milder symptoms. But if you have type 2 diabetes and you're looking like you do, Steve, in good shape, that would be a pretty good indicator that you'd have to ask the question why. We need to become more suspicious about why we have the conditions that we have.
All right, Bob, thank you very much. Thanks, Ivan.
You're welcome.
Bob Rogers is Executive Director of the Canadian Hemochromatosis Society. Ivan Doncaster is a councillor for CBRM District 7, but he also has hemochromatosis. And if you're interested in finding out more, there are 2 information sessions coming up this week. One at the Grand Lake Road Fire Hall. That's tonight at 7 o'clock. The one tomorrow is in Sydney Mines at the old post office building at 7. And if you're interested in looking at that website, it's toommuchiron.ca. And the phone number is 1-877-BAD-IRON. So the website, toommuchiron.ca, and the hotline is 1-877-BAD-IRON.